to this budget class. You know that there has been a disruption in our regular class conduction due to the order which has been passed by the government of Delhi in the wake of the spread of COVID-19. But listen one thing, that nothing should disrupt our preparation, and hence till the time such orders are in place, I will be connected with you people through the online mode, and you must be having some questions with respect to certain topics which will be discussed in the class. So do not get panicked about those questions. Is what we can do is, once the government orders are lifted, it means a regular class conduction is possible. I will arrange 1 or 2 doubt session clearing classes so that you can post your questions and we can discuss above them. And if suppose that is also not possible, you are always welcome to come to the institute and ask your questions. But keep this in mind that you should not get disheartened by this kind of situation, because the path that you have chosen, the life of a bureaucrat, is full of challenges. It is one which is filled with all kinds of uncertainties, and these kind of situations are very frequent, and you will encounter them very frequently. So do not get disheartened by this, do not get demotivated by this, rather take it as a challenge and try to remain on course. Now, if we stick to our plan, what we have planned, that we need to complete everything so that we get enough time for revision, we must focus on that. And if we stick to our strategy, I think we will sail through this difficult time. But anyhow, let's start the budget class. Now, if you see the budget 2021 that has been presented, it is woven around 3 important themes, and they are aspirational India, economic development, and caring India. Now, we have already seen the background through which the budget has been presented, because we have already discussed our economic survey volume 1 and volume 2, and we have seen that volume 1 gives us enough insight with respect to the mindset through which the government is presenting the budget. So we will see certain parallels that we have already discussed in the economic survey, and we can draw clear connection between the economic survey as well as the budget 2020-21. Now you see, any budgetary document, it is an estimate. It is an estimate with respect to how the governments will raise its revenue and where will it spend its money. So it's nothing but it's just an account of revenue and expenditure. And you see, that's why it is also known as the annual financial statement on revenue and expenditure. So that's the official name of the budget, but popularly it is known as the budget. So if we see this year's budget, you will see 3 important things. One is aspirational India. Now, what do we mean by this aspirational India? Like you all are UPSC aspirants, aspiration means that something better we are seeking for. So everyone in India is now seeking a better standard of living. Now, how can you achieve that better standard of living? You can achieve that through good education, through good health facilities, and when you have access to jobs and resources. And that is what you will see, that you will find these themes prominently dominated in the budget. As far as educational processes and educational development is concerned, you will see that not only the budget focuses on the quantity of education, but also the quality of education. It also calls for integration of present educational institutions with foreign institutions, or there is some sort of digitization that will help in the promotion of quality education. So aspirational India is education, health and jobs, which improve your standard of living. That is aspirational India. As far as economic development is concerned, government feels through this budget, and it tries to explain to the people, that economic development is possible only when there are economic reforms. Now students, we have discussed on numerous occasions the structural deficiencies that plague the Indian economy. So we'll try to improve upon such discussions, and we'll try to understand why the government is focusing on economic reforms. And economic reforms government believes that will also generate enough motivation for the private sector to participate. Private sector will be motivated to participate and invest in the economy only when the government supports it through a good economic policy structure, or there is good economic reform environment, and the private sector feels that it will not be harassed at the hands of the government. Very much similar to what Adam Smith was saying. And since we have accepted the liberalization privatization model after 1991 reform, so this is just a further you can say it is our movement on that path. Now that is all with respect to economic development. As far as the third theme of this budget is concerned, is caring India. Caring India means to create a compassionate society. A compassionate society will be created only when the weakest sections of the society get their due share. Now, what do we mean by that? It means that there are certain vulnerable groups in the society and who are generally out of the ambit of the welfare programs. Even though they are targeted to help them, they do not get the advantages that flow out of them, mostly because they are excluded from mainstream social makeup, or they do not have the channels to access those schemes or those welfare measures. So the government through this budget is trying to promote a compassionate society in which the focus would be on Antyodaya. Antyodaya means Antyodaya sections are those sections of the society which are the weakest and the most vulnerable. So the aim is Sarvodaya. It means everyone's development through Antyodaya. If we can target the most weakest and the vulnerable sections, we'll see that overall social improvement is possible. So there are three prominent themes. I am repeating them: aspirational India, which means a better standard of living; then economic development, which would be effected by economic reforms and participation of private sector; and third is caring India. Caring India means to create a compassionate society, and this compassionate society will be driven by the growth that would be given to the Antyodaya section, or to the weakest sections of the society. So let us see some slides, some information with respect to this budget. So let's get started. Now look at this. What are the aims and objectives of the budget 2020-21? The first aim is to achieve a seamless delivery of services through digital governance. Now you see that service delivery is an important aspect of economic growth. Service delivery also improves ease of doing business, and we have seen that how India has improved in the ease of doing business rankings. But when we say digital governance, we mean that how the government will promote digitization, say for procurement, for tax collection, for refunding, for distribution, etc. So that is one of the major aims of this budget 2020-21. The second aim is to improve physical quality of life through national infrastructure pipeline. Now we have already discussed the national infrastructure pipeline in our current affairs classes. We have also seen a glimpse of it when we were doing the economic survey. But national infrastructure pipeline simply means that it will promote the creation of physical infrastructure that will have a direct effect on the production and distribution sectors. It means, simply put, that this is a step that will promote capital formation. Third is risk mitigation through disaster resilience. Now we have seen something with respect to the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. Now you will see that this aim is very much in tune with that framework, and we'll also see that framework as we go forward. We have already discussed that in one of our current affair classes. Now disaster resilience simply means that if there is a disaster, how quickly you can revert back to normalcy. It means the time taken to attain normalcy. That is resilience. The lesser the time, greater is the resilience. Disaster resilience is possible only when you create your infrastructure in a resilient manner, and also you do capacity building with respect to people's ability to cope with such disasters and then to put their life back in order. And how quickly they can do it, the more resilient they are. So that is the third aim of the budget. The fourth aim is social security through pension and insurance penetration. Now, look at this, that not only people are bothered about jobs and employment, but the people also get affected by, say, they are always in a kind of anxiety with respect to what would happen to them if they do not have a job, or post-retirement, how they would carry on their lives. And if, suppose, something bad happens to the breadwinner of the family, what will happen to the rest? Now, that is a kind of social security that people are seeking for. Now, social security is possible through various means, but two major streams through which social security is promoted in most of the countries is, first is insurance and second is pension. Insurance gives you a cover while you are in job, and pension gives you a cover while you have attained your superannuation. It means post-retirement life and during your employment period. It reduces the risk that is associated otherwise. Now, that is the fourth major aim of the budget. So, you understand, these are the four major objectives or the aims of the budget: digital governance, national infrastructure pipeline, disaster resilience, pension and insurance penetration. Now, in your preliminary examination, this itself can be a question. Like always say that whenever there are four statements, they are excellent for your examination. So, this is an important thing that you need to keep in mind. And the theme of the budget I have already discussed. They are aspirational India, economic development and caring society, or caring India, you can say that. Now, aspirational India is one in which all sections of the society seek better standards of living. Better standards of living means you are trying to improve your life standards. Now, this can only happen only when you have access to health, education and better jobs. Not only jobs, but you have access to energy. That will also improve your standard of living. Second is economic development, and I have said you that indicated in Prime Minister's exhortation of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, that this would entail reforms across swaths of economy. It means all sectors of economy, and at all stages of value chain, you need some economic reforms which are pending in this country for now, say a decade or something like that. They have already been suggested and they have already been recommended by several committees, several commissions that have been set up for suggesting reforms of the economy. But due to, you can say, the coalition dharma, maybe because of which previous governments suffered, they were not being implemented. But now this government has full majority and it can go ahead with such reforms, and it is determined to do such reforms. Once such reforms are done, the government believes that there will be private sector participation. And as the private sector participates in the economy, you can understand they will bring with them efficiency, they will bring with them expertise, and they will bring with them organization skills. All of this will augment the productive efficacy of the economy. Obviously, this must be seen in tune with the national infrastructure pipeline. So, capital formation will be promoted by economic reforms and by infrastructure build-up. Now, let us see the third thing, which is caring society, and I said that which is both humane and compassionate, and this will be achieved by uplifting the weakest and the vulnerable sections of the society. It means caring for the Antyodaya and then assuring Sarvodaya, which is the upliftment of all. So these are the themes, three major themes of the budget, and these are the four major aims of the budget. Now we will take one theme at a time and we'll try to elaborate on that. So let us see Aspirational India. Aspirational India has three important parts. First is agriculture, irrigation and rural development. Second is wellness, water and sanitation. And third is education and skills. Now, let us understand one thing, When we say aspirational India, we are saying that we are trying to improve our life standards. And the first thing that it says that agriculture, irrigation and rural development must be focused to improve life standards. Because, see, it is believed that in 10 years or 15 years time, India may end up with the largest middle class in the entire world. And the middle class is what it drives the economy, because the major demand for goods and services comes from the middle class as a section. Now, they facilitate mass consumption, and mass consumption promotes mass production, and mass production gives you economies of scale and thereby improving profits so that you can invest more in the economy, which further leads to capital formation. And if you see that middle class mostly have a relatively better purchasing power. And today in India, a greater part of the population is still dependent on agriculture. And the condition of agriculture is not very happy because of the structural deficiency and the institutional inadequacies that plague the agricultural sector. So the budget first focuses on agriculture. It also says that irrigation is important for agricultural development, and it not only restricts itself to agriculture, but it also calls for holistic rural development. Now let us see that more in detail. So see, the government has already decided, or it has already given a clarion call that it will double the farmers' income by 2022. But let me tell you one thing, friends, that this is not possible to double the farmers' income by 2022 without involving the private sector in agriculture. Unless you give some due space to private sector, then this dream looks very unlikely by the period 2022, and we are already in 2020. So 2021 and 21-22 budget will be crucial as how much space do they give to the private sector, thereby promoting agricultural development. So let us have a look at them. Now, see, the first thing that the government has said that it will encourage those state governments which undertake the implementation of these laws, which are central laws. Remember, agriculture is a state subject and center has passed some model laws and it has appealed the states to implement those laws. So the government is saying, the central government is saying that encouragement will be given to states who take implementation of these following central government model acts which relate to agriculture. Now, let us have a look at them. The first one is Model Agricultural Land Leasing Act 2016. The second one is Model Agricultural Produce and Livestock Marketing, Promotion and Facilitation Act 2017. Model Agricultural Produce and Livestock Contract Farming and Services, Promotion and Facilitation Act 2018. So 16, 17, 18, every year the government has passed, the central government has passed a model law on agriculture. It cannot make an actual law on agriculture because agriculture is a state subject after all. But by making these three laws, the government has asked the state governments, it means the central government has asked the state governments to take inspiration from these laws or to implement these laws the way they are under the state government's power to do so. Now, 16, 17 and 18, these are important years. See, every year the government is coming up with a new legislation, a model legislation, because the government wants to double the farmers' income by 2022, because that is at least what has been promised by the government to people of India and precisely to the agricultural sector. And you see, so that is the first thing that the budget says, that encouragement would be given to states which will implement these laws. Second is PM-KUSUM, which is Pradhan Mantri Krishi Urja Suraksha Evam Utthan Mahabhiyan. Now we have already seen this. This is mostly with respect to energy security of the farmers. So let us see what it tells. PM-KUSUM scheme removed farmers' dependence on diesel and kerosene and linked pump sets to solar energy. That we have seen in one of the classes. In addition, a scheme to enable farmers to set up solar power generation capacity on their fallow barren lands and also to sell it to the grid would be operationalized. Now, What do we mean by this statement? PM-KUSUM we have already seen in one of our current affairs classes, so I am not going in detail with that, but simply put is it tries to provide energy security to the farmers. Apart from this, this budget suggests that a new scheme will be launched which will promote the establishment of solar power plants on barren or fallow lands which are held by the farmers, and the electricity or the power that would be generated from those solar power plants will also be transported through the grid. Now we have electricity grids, like we are planning for a national integrated grid, though we have now say some achievements with respect to that endeavor, but anyhow, so it says that generation capacity on their fallow barren lands and to sell it to the grid. Grid means the grid sells electricity for both consumption and for commercial purposes. So both residential and commercial electricity comes from the grid, and now this will not only provide, now this move will not only provide energy security to the farmers, but it will also generate extra income for them if they can negotiate well. Also, this will improve the total supply of electricity in the grid, thereby bringing the cost per unit down for the common people. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. Let us see the second thing. A backward linkage, a village storage scheme is proposed to be run by SHG. SHG, self-help groups. Now, a lot of grains, especially in India, are wasted because of lack of storage facilities. So the budget is saying that a backward linkage mostly means farm linkages, and forward linkages mostly means market linkages. So a backward linkage will be provided that will promote village storage. It means storage facilities in the village itself, and this will be run by SHGs. Now when we say self-help groups, they are mostly you will see that they are controlled by women in the rural economy, and therefore it is a great effort not only to cut down on wastage, promote storage, but also give economic power to women and self-help groups. So it is trying to promote a kind of cooperative effort in the rural economy. Now this will also make the women, the SHGs, Dhanalakshmi. It means they would have, or Dhanalakshmi, you can say that they would now have the control of dhan or the grains or something like that. Now let us have look at the third one. To build a seamless national cold supply chain for perishable, inclusive of milk, meat and fish, the railways will set up a Kisan Rail. So the railways will run a special train which will take care of the perishables, like say for example milk, meat and fish. Krishi Udaan, this will be an initiative taken by the Ministry of Civil Aviation on international and national routes. This will immensely help improve value realization, especially in northeast and tribal districts. Now you see that on many occasions, especially in the northeastern India, there is some deficiency of infrastructure, mostly because of the hostile terrain, undulated topography. But if you have Krishi Udaan, Krishi Udaan will be like, say, remember Udaan, which was Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik? So it is more or less on those lines, but it is for agro marketing. And that's why it will give an extra edge not only to markets that are present in the northeast, but also to the producers, those who are present in the northeast. Now, for horticulture sectors, better marketing and export, the center has proposed support to states which adopt a model on cluster basis, focus on one product, one district. Now, the government has also asked the states to encourage the districts to take any one particular product, horticultural product, and every district will be known by that product. This will not only help in integration of the farms, will also provide economies of scale and will also impart some degree of specialization. All of this will help in improving income. Now, look at this. Integrated farming systems in rain-fed areas shall be expanded. Multi-tier cropping, beekeeping, solar pumps, solar energy production in non-cropping seasons will be added. Zero budget natural farming shall also be included. The portal on Jaivik Kheti, online organic products markets will also be strengthened. Now, there are three important words here: integrated farming systems. Now, what are integrated farming system? Integrated farming system means holistic farming system. It means the farmer first does the planning, the organization, procurement of seeds, does the soil testing, then works on water management, tries to control pollution, works on enrichment of the soil, cut downs chemical fertilizers, promotes organic fertilizers, sustainable farming, all those kind of things. That is integrated farming system. So integrated farming system in rain-fed areas. There are two kind of farming that goes on in India. One is irrigational areas and rain-fed areas. Rain-fed areas are mostly the eastern parts of the country. The western parts, and when we say western, we mean northwestern part of the country. Those areas which were the beneficiary regions of the Green Revolution are mostly, they have irrigational facilities by and large. But the eastern parts, say eastern Bihar, Bengal, Assam, or eastern Uttar Pradesh, to that extent, Odisha, you can include Odisha also in that, they do not have well spread irrigational facilities, and that's why this integrated farming systems, it will be encouraged there. Now, look at this. The second important thing here is zero budget national farming, zero budget natural farming. Zero budget, it means that the farmer must have no budget with him. It means it will not take any expenditure on the part of the farmer. Farmer will try to cultivate on the basis of local resources which are available in and around him, in his locality. And natural farming means it is focusing on organic farming, and for that you have Jaivik Kheti. Now, Jaivik Kheti will be nothing but an online national organic products market, clear, and it will also promote organic farming. Now, government intends to eliminate foot and mouth diseases, brucellosis in cattle, and also peste des Petis ruminants in sheep and goat by 2025. Coverage of artificial insemination shall be increased from the present level, present 30% to 70%. Now again, here we encounter some typical words, but let us first look at this. Brucellosis. Brucellosis is a kind of a bacterial infection which happens in cattle. It can also affect humans and causes kind of undulating, say, fever in humans. Peste des Petis ruminans. This disease, don't go at the typical name of it, but this disease affects mostly sheep and goat. It is also known as goat plague. Now, this causes fever in goats, may also cause some sort of sore throat in them. It can also cause diarrhea in them. So, see what the government is intending through the budget. It wants to eliminate foot and mouth disease, brucellosis, peste des Petis ruminans in sheep and goat by 2025. And you know that if you improve the standard of livestock, because you see that there is a model act which has been passed on livestock. In fact, there are two of them. So, a focus has also been laid on livestock improvement. Coverage of artificial insemination. Now, artificial insemination is a kind of artificial way of increasing the rate of fertilization in cattle so as to increase the numbers and again gain economies of scale. So, you can see that these are the steps that have been suggested by the government in the budget with respect to agriculture, irrigation and rural development. Let us take the second thing, which is wellness, water and sanitation. Now, look at this. A holistic vision of healthcare that translates into wellness of citizens has been laid down. Mission Indradhanush has been expanded to cover 12 such diseases, including 5 new vaccines. Now, Indradhanush has, now this name is also relevant in the banking sector with respect to some banking sector reforms, but we are not touching that. Indradhanush otherwise is known for a mass immunization program. Now, initially it had 7 vaccines, and that's why you can draw the corollary Indradhanush, the 7 colors. But now 5 new vaccines have been introduced into it. So, it covers now 12 such diseases. Now, I leave on you this, that you check out that what are these new 5 addition. For that you can go to the Ministry of Health website and you can find it out. Anyhow, look at this. Fit India movement. Fit India movement is a vital part for fighting non-communicable diseases. Non-communicable diseases are those diseases which emerge from your bad lifestyle. Like you have seen that especially as economic development is happening, people are engaged in work maybe for longer durations of the day, and they are spending more hours in work, and thus the leisure time is very less, and due to this bad lifestyle they are getting affected by number of diseases, like say one would be type 2 diabetes, for example. So Fit India, which was recently launched by the Prime Minister, aims to fight those non-communicable diseases that evolve from following a bad lifestyle. And anyhow, now you see a very focused safe water, which is Jal Jeevan Mission. Jal Jeevan Mission focuses on piped water to every home, and comprehensive sanitation program Swachh Bharat Mission, you know about it, have been launched to support the health vision. So Fit India, Jal Jeevan Mission and Swachh Bharat. In this, you must focus on Fit India and Jal Jeevan because they are recently launched, whereas Swachh Bharat is now a relatively older scheme. Under PM Jan Arogya Yojana, there are more than 20,000 empanelled hospitals. Now, this Jan Arogya Yojana, you know that it focuses on health and wellness. And what do we mean by this empanelled hospitals? Empanelled hospitals are those hospitals which give some sort of specific treatment, or they conduct some diagnosis with respect to some specialized nature, Now, these are empanelled hospitals. So there are more than 20,000 empanelled hospitals. The government says that it needs to improve their number in tier 2 and tier 3 cities for poorer people under the scheme, which is the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, because it focuses on health and wellness. It is proposed to set up viability gap funding window for setting up hospitals in the PPP mode. And you know, to build empanelled hospitals, it takes a lot of cost. And if you do that in tier 2, tier 3 cities, obviously there are a large number of tier 2 and tier 3 cities. The government might not have the enough revenues to do that. So what the government has suggested that it will create a viability gap funding. Viability gap funding is the extra fund cover that would be needed to make the economic project economically viable. Now, you see that would be done by the government for setting up the hospitals, and this will be done with the help of private participation along with government's participation. This would be more of like a PPP kind of thing. Using machine learning and AI in Ayushman Bharat scheme, health authorities and medical fraternity can target diseases with an appropriately designed preventive regime. Now again, you see, if you look at India's healthcare system, the biggest problem that you will identify is that all the focus is on curative healthcare and very less focus on preventive healthcare. So now what the budget is suggesting, that you incorporate technologies like artificial intelligence in Ayushman Bharat to promote preventive healthcare. Now look at this, TB harega, desh jeetega, and this is a campaign which is going on in India, and it seeks to eliminate tuberculosis by 2025. So keep this in mind. Remember that brucellosis, it is also being eliminated, and similarly tuberculosis is also being eliminated. Aiming to provide piped water supply to all households, Prime Minister announced from Red Fort Jal Jeevan Mission, which is that mission. This scheme also places emphasis on augmenting local water resources, recharging existing sources, and will promote water harvesting and desalinization. Cities with over 1 million population will be encouraged to meeting this objective during the current year itself. Now, these are the different kind of things that would be promoted just to ensure that every household has access to clean drinking water. Now, let us look at the third part of Aspirational India, which is education and skills. Now look at this. By 2030, India is said to have the largest working age population in the world, and this is nothing but it is a natural outcome of the demographic dividend that we are enjoying. Not only do they need literacy, but they need both jobs and life skills. So, unless we provide them with the necessary skills and quality education, they may not bring the expected benefits to the economy. Now, in order to provide quality education to students from the deprived sections of the society, as well as to those who do not have access to higher education, a degree level full-fledged online education program has been launched. Now, you look at this, this shall be offered only by institutions who are ranked within top 100 in the National Institutional Ranking Framework. Now, the point here is that obviously there are certain people or certain sections of the society which find it really hard to have access to quality institutions, and due to that dearth of access, they feel deprived, or they feel that they are not getting the true benefits that otherwise they deserve. Now, the government is trying to balance that out by encouraging degree level full-fledged online education program. And this online education, it means degrees would be awarded by the top-notch education institutions and online. And obviously you can understand that the government will ensure that the poor had access to internet. Now, that's another big challenge which the government will try to handle. India should be preferred destination for higher education. Hence, under its Study in India program, INSAT, which is a scholastic assessment test. Now, you see, this scholastic assessment test is it is very popular in United States of America, United Kingdom, or Canada, etc. Now, these tests are conducted by those countries for encouraging students, offshore students, to study in the country. Now, when foreign students come and study in a country, they bring with them dollars, and it is very much similar to export of services, and you know exports are part of your GDP, and hence it augments growth. Also, it gives an opportunity to exhibit the soft power. So that is what will be promoted under the Study in India program. Now, INSAT will be available for Asian and African countries. Now, this has been exhorted in the budget. Now, let us look at this one. A National Police University and a National Forensic Science University will also be set up, obviously for policing science, forensic science, and cyber forensics. To overcome the shortage of qualified medical doctors, it is proposed to attach a medical college to an existing district hospital in PPP mode. National Board of Examination imparts PG medical qualification, diploma, and fellow of National Board, which is DNB, FNB. The government will therefore encourage large hospitals with sufficient capacity to offer resident doctors DNB, FNB courses under the National Board of Examination. So it is saying first is saying that attach a medical college to an existing district hospital, and do that in a PPP mode, obviously to promote the quality of medical practitioners that you will have in the district hospitals. The second, it says that if the hospital is large enough, then it must have the capability to give some special fellowship or degrees to its resident doctors. It means those doctors which are working in that hospital. Now, this is also proposed by the budget. Now, let us look at the third thing. There exists a huge demand for teachers, nurses, paramedical staff, and caregivers. However, their skill sets may at time do not match the employer standards, and therefore they must be improved. Special bridge courses will be designed by the Ministries of Health and Skill Development together with professional bodies to bring in equivalence. Language requirements of various countries shall also be kept in mind while designing such courses. Now, you see, care economy is now emerging as a very important sector, especially in the West. And in the West, you see, there is a great demand for, say, paramedical staff, nurses, or say other kind of caregivers. The point is, India has enough of such staff, but the point is, at times their skills do not match to the demands that are prevalent in the Western societies. And so the government under this budget has proposed some bridge courses. Bridge courses that would be obviously done by the Ministry of Health and Skill Development. Now look at this. These courses will help in bridging the skill gap, or will train them as per the requirements that are needed in the Western societies. So this is an important thing, and also you can understand this is again a kind of export of services which will augment the GDP. Now, language requirement of various countries shall also be kept in mind while designing such courses. You see, care industry, like say for example, if it's a caring institution in which you enroll, and the people who are there in the institution are speaking a language which is alien or foreign to you, you do not feel comfortable in those situations. Though we have good number of English speaking people in the country, but you see, I have already said that, say for example, in other countries of Europe and say some countries in Central Asia, there maybe you need some languages other than English. So that is what the government will try to do. So that is all about aspirational India. Let's move to economic development. Remember, economic development first through economic reforms and then by allowing space for private participation. Now let us look at this. Economic development can also be divided into three further broad parameters as per this budget: industry, commerce and investment, infrastructure and new economy. National infrastructure pipeline, we have already discussed about it, but we will see more in detail what this budget says with respect to infrastructure. Now look at this: industry, commerce and investment. Now, there is a case for maximizing the benefits of three separately developing economic activities. Now, what are these economic activities? The upcoming economic corridors, revitalization of manufacturing activities, technology and the demands of aspirational classes. Now, when we say economic corridors, remember that there are these dedicated freight corridors, Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, and there are so many economic corridors that are coming up in the country. North-South corridor, East-West corridor. So the budget says that we must encourage them. And second, it says that revitalization of manufacturing activities. Remember, manufacturing sector or development in manufacturing helps in creation of jobs for the unskilled and the semi-skilled. And that's why you would see that this is an important thing. Technology and demands of aspirational classes. Obviously, with the economic development, aspirations grow, mostly of the middle class. The middle class, you see, is the most aspirational class in the economy. And that's why I have already said that they determine the rate of consumption. And the rate of consumption has a direct linkage with the rate of investment. Technology, obviously technology improves the productive capacity in the economy. We have to benefit from their convergence. It means all the three. Now look at this. Hence it is proposed in this budget to develop 5 new smart cities in collaboration with states in PPP mode. Now these new 5 smart cities, the sites have not been announced. Such sites would be chosen that offer the best choices in terms of these things, what we have already discussed. Now, let us look at the further things that are included under this category. Is India imports significantly quantity of technical textiles worth US $16 billion every year. To reverse this trend and to position India as a global leader in technical textiles, a national technical textile mission is proposed within 4-year implementation period from 2021 to 23-24 at an estimated outlay of 1,480 crores. Now, the point here to understand is, what is this technical textiles? Technical textiles are textiles which are produced for non-aesthetic purposes. It means their use is mostly with respect to, say, industry. So these are those textiles which are meant for industrial purposes and not for consumption, like say for example a shirt is not a technical textile. Now technical textile simply means like say for example the textile which is used by the automobile industry or the railway industry. Now these are technical textiles. So a national technical textile mission is proposed for promotion of technical textile, because India imports a lot of technical textiles. To achieve higher export credit disbursement, a new scheme NIRVIC, which is Niryat Rin Vikas Yojana. Obviously, it's a kind of, you can say, credit facility to the exporters is being launched, which provides for higher insurance coverage, reduction in premium for small exporters, and simplified procedure for claim settlements. Now, unless you give export credit and export credit at a cheaper rate, not only you must give export credit, but you must reduce the duties that are there on the exports. Because you see, when the exported materials, they go out and fight with other products coming from other countries in the international market, there is two kind of competition: price competition and quality competition. And this determines two competitiveness, which is price competitiveness and quality competitiveness. So this credit which you give on time, and if you reduce the duties or you refund the duties, then you improve the price competitiveness of your product. And obviously, I have already said that exports benefit the economy, it benefits the GDP. Similarly, you see, it is proposed to digitally refund to exporters, what I was already talking about, duties and taxes levied at the central, state and local level, such as electricity duties and VAT on fuel used for transportation, which are not getting exempted or refunded under any other existing mechanism. This scheme for reversion of duties and taxes on exported products will be launched this year. So it is not launched, it will be launched. Government e-marketplace. E-marketplace, we have already discussed this in one of our current affair classes. Government e-marketplace is nothing but an integrated market for goods, services and works. Works means labor. So it's a market for goods, services and labor, or works. Now look at this, that this is extremely helpful for MSMEs. MSMEs, because they can benefit of such situation. Because you can say access to different markets, it takes time and it's also costly. Is moving ahead for creation of a unified procurement system in the country for providing a single platform for procurement of goods, services and works. It offers a great opportunity for MSMEs, which I was already talking about. Now look at this, infrastructure, which is the second component of economic development. A national logistics policy. Remember, we have discussed this in the economic survey, that the logistics sectors, it is expected, would be the largest generator of jobs by 2022 or something like that. Now look at this, a national logistics policy will be launched. Logistics, by the way, is the sector which is engaged in procurement, distribution, storage, etc. Now state governments and key regulators, it will create a single window e-logistics market, like very much similar to the eNAM, and focus on generation of employment skills and making MSMEs competitive. Fast tag mechanism, remember, as the vehicles, they pass by the toll nakas, if they have fast tag mechanism, there is prepaid deduction from their accounts, and it also not only helps in the overall resource realization for, say, NHAI, it also helps in cutting down delays. And if there are delays in the transportation system, that is structural deficiency of the economy. So the budget tries to eliminate that. FASTag mechanism encourages us towards greater commercialization of our highways so that NHAI can raise more resources. Proposals have been made to monetize at least 12 lots of highway bundles of over 6,000 kilometers before 2024, obviously by the FASTag mechanism. Now let us look at this, what the railways are doing. About the Indian Railways, there are 5 measures that has been taken in this budget. Setting up a large solar power capacity alongside the rail tracks on the lands owned by the railways. A proposal is under consideration, obviously, to improve the energy supply that a railway has. 4 station redevelopment projects and operation of 150 passenger trains would be done through PPP mode. Now this is, you can say that these are the incipient steps that are being taken with respect to, say, liquidation of some of the holding of the government with respect to the railways. So the government is making baby steps towards, you can say, disinvestments in the railways. But for now, it is calling for PPP participation. But you will see in near future, as the economy grows, you will see several non-core functions will be handed over to the private parties. Now, more Tejas type trains will connect iconic tourist destinations. Now, what is this Tejas? Now, remember, Tejas is also a light combat aircraft, but this Tejas Express is it's a semi-high speed train, and which has fully automated services, and it has automatic doors and very much like the Delhi Metro or something like that. So more of such kind of Tejas Express kind of trains would be encouraged to connect to tourist destinations for fast movement of tourists. High-speed train between Mumbai and Ahmedabad would be actively pursued. This we have already seen. 148 kilometer Bengaluru suburban transport project at a cost of 18,600 crores would have fares on metro model. Central government would provide 20% of the equity and facilitate external assistance up to 60% of the project cost. Now, also you see that something like Arth Ganga has been promoted. Arth Ganga simply means to promote economic development on the banks of the river. Now, let us look at this. Developing waterways has its impact on the ecosystem of both the banks of the river. The Prime Minister has conceptualized Arth Ganga. Plans are afoot to energize economic activity along river banks. So keep this in mind. Arth Ganga means economic development along both the banks of the river. Now, will that create some sort of ecological challenge? Yes, obviously, maybe, because then you are talking about economic development over floodplains. But what is the midway out? The midway out would be zonation. It means which are very highly sensitive zones, there should not be any kind of economic development, and otherwise in other places where it is possible, it should be encouraged because you get easy transport through the river. Air traffic has been growing rapidly in the country as compared to the global average. 100 more airports would be developed by 2024 to support Udaan scheme, which is Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. Remember the Krishi Udaan that we have already discussed with respect to perishables. The ministry intends to promote smart metering. Smart metering to remove this conventional meters. Now, this has two advantages. First, that it will not allow the theft of electricity, and second, it will give consumers the choice, and one who would offer you the best price, you can go for that company. So it has a win-win situation for both. The third component of economic development is new economy. The new economy is based on innovations that disrupt established business models. Now, say for example, artificial intelligence or IoT or 3D printing, DNA data storage, unmanned aerial vehicles or drones, quantum computing, etc. Quantum computing is computing which uses quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is subatomic mechanics. It's a branch of physics. But anyhow, look at this. Rewriting the world economic order. India has already embraced new paradigms such as the sharing economy with aggregator platforms displacing conventional businesses. Government has harnessed new technologies to enable direct benefit transfer and financial inclusion on a scale never before imagined. Now, look at this. It is now a cliche. Data is the new oil. Yes, obviously, everyone says that that country which has more data and can analyze that data well will have an economic advantage as far as world trade, investment, or say labor movement is concerned. Now, this is the day and age of big data analytics. So this is what the budget is saying, that, and it is true that analytics, fintech and Internet of Things are changing the way we deal with our lives. To take advantage of this, the finance ministers have proposed, and let us see what she has proposed, to bring out soon a policy to enable private sector to build data center parks. Again, you see there is a focus on private participation throughout the country. It will enable our firms to skillfully incorporate data in every step of their value chains. The government's vision is that all public institutions and gram panchayat level such as Anganwadis, health and wellness centers, government schools, PDS outlets, post offices and police stations will be provided with digital connectivity. So fiber to home FTTH connections through BharatNet will link 100,000 gram panchayats this year. Now, BharatNet is, it has subsumed the national fiber optic network. So this we have already discussed in one of our previous classes, so I'm not touching it. It's a kind of old kind of thing. What is important is this thing, the data center parks, and this would be developed with private participation or PPP model, you can say. We need to expand the base of knowledge-driven enterprises, intellectual property creation and their protection. Several measures are proposed in this regard. Now, IPR. IPR is an important component if you want to encourage investment and at least the perception with respect to IPR is not great in the West regarding the IPR regime in India. So the government through the budget is trying to infuse confidence in the investors that the IPR protection that is already, anyhow, Indian IPR laws are very much in tune with the TRIPS agreement, but government is trying to infuse further confidence. That is what we can say. So you see, a digital platform would be promoted that would facilitate seamless application and capture of IPRs. Also, in an institute of excellence, a center would be established that would work on the complexity and innovation in the field of intellectual property. Knowledge translation clusters would be set up across different technology sectors, including new and emerging areas, for designing, fabrication and validation of proof concept and further scaling up technology clusters. Test beds and small scale manufacturing facilities would be established. Mapping of India's genetic landscape is critical for next generation medicines, agriculture and biodiversity management. To support this development, the government will initiate 2 new national level science schemes to create a comprehensive database. Now this India's genetic landscape means nothing but a creation of kind of a DNA bank for all the Indians. Now, will that bring privacy issues into question? Now, this is a different kind of debate which we will entertain sometime later as we go to our discussions in mains maybe. You see, the government proposes to provide early life funding, including a seed fund to support ideation and development of early stage startups. Also under the Startup India program, keep this in mind that the patent application fees is either exempted or it is reduced, especially for the first 3 years it is exempted. Quantum technology is opening up new frontiers in computing, communication, cybersecurity and widespread application. It is expected that lots of commercial applications would emerge from theoretical constructs which are developing in this area. Obviously, quantum physics, quantum mechanics, or the study at subatomic level, that is quantum computing. Quantum computing will make the computers more faster, more efficient, which can handle large amounts of data and will be very much, you can say, providing the backbone to big data. So let us see the last thing, which is caring India. Women and child social welfare, culture and tourism, environment and climate change. These are the 3 components of caring India as proposed in this budget. Let us look at the first one, women and child social welfare. Health of mother and child are closely correlated. Nutrition is the critical component of health. To improve the nutritional status of children, adolescent girls, pregnant women and lactating mothers, the Prime Minister launched Poshan Abhiyan in 2017-18. Remember the Poshan Abhiyan which we had discussed in one of our current affairs classes. But keep this in mind that it focuses on what? Children, adolescent girls, pregnant women and lactating mother. So it's women and child kind of scheme. Now the government is determined that there shall be no manual cleaning of sewer systems or septic tanks. Suitable technologies of such tanks have been identified by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. The ministry is working with urban local bodies for the adoption of these technologies. The government will now take this to its logical conclusion through legislative and institutional changes. Financial support for wider acceptance of such technologies will be provided. Simply means, you see that still today it is unfortunate that manual scavenging is rampant in the country. So what the government is trying to do is it is trying to provide legislative and institutional supports. It means it is trying to pass laws and it is trying to build institutions which will help the local institutions or local bodies to adopt technologies that can replace manual scavenging. Obviously, then you can say those who are engaged in manual scavenging, they can then be targeted better under government programs and it can cause some sort of antyodaya. Remember that? Now, look at this, culture and tourism. 5 archaeological sites would be developed as iconic sites with on-site museums. Now, these are all historical sites. Rakhigadi, which is in Haryana, Hastinapur, Uttar Pradesh, Shivsagar, Assam, Dholavira, Gujarat, Dholavira and Indus Valley site, and Adichanallur, which is in Tamil Nadu. Now, look at this. In the historic Old Mint building, it means that where the coins were prepared of the British East India Company and later on the British government, a museum on numismatics and trade will also be located. Numismatics museum means museum of coins. 4 more museums from across the country shall be taken up for renovation and recuration so that a world-class experience can be offered to visitors. Government shall also support setting up of a, now look, this is important, a tribal museum in Ranchi. So this can be a question, like recently under the budget a tribal museum has been proposed, and this can be one of the statements, or it can be a question in itself as well. A maritime museum would also be set up at Lothal again an Indus Valley site which had the dockyard, the Harappan Age maritime site near Ahmedabad by Ministry of Shipping. Environment and climate change. In September 2019, the Prime Minister launched the Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure with its secretariat in Delhi. We have seen this in current affairs. This global partnership is the second such international initiative after the launch of International Solar Alliance. That was the first clarion call which India gave to the whole world. This global partnership will help in addressing a number of sustainable development goals, as also the aims of Sendai framework. Sendai framework on disaster risk reductions. We have seen the Sendai framework also in one of our current affairs classes, so I am not touching it again. It will enhance climate change adaptation with a focus on disaster resilient infrastructure. So as far as this is concerned, there is nothing new announcement as per the budget is concerned, but only reiteration of what has been already done, and allocations have been obviously made under different heads. So aspirational India, economic development, and caring India or caring society, that is what makes up the budget 2021. But this is one aspect of the budget. Now we can also have some questions with respect to some trends that are there in the budget. So I'll try to analyze those trends further. So let's have a look at them. Now these are the major macroeconomic indicators. Now questions are sometimes like this, that in the last 3 years there has been continuous growth in the GDP, and you can see that we are having data from 2012-13 fiscal to 2019-20, and this is actual estimate, and you see that there is a dip and now there is a slowdown which is going on. And you see that 2016-17 maybe India was growing at its fastest rate, which is almost nearing 8, and this is the highest growth rate that India has achieved since the mortgage crisis. Now anyhow, today India is facing a kind of slowdown. So there has not been an exponential growth in the GDP for the last 5 years. This is one trend which you must keep in mind. The second is when you look at CPI and WPI inflation. If you see CPI inflation, which is showed in the blue line, CPIC means combined, which is also the headline inflation. It has reduced, but recently it has increased. We have seen that in our survey class, that this recent increase, we have seen in our current affair class that this recent increase is due to the unseasonal rainfall and the floods that happened in some parts of the country. Now when you look at WPI it dwindled. We are having data from 14-15 to 18-19 and also 19-20 actual estimates. Now you see that it has come down. So neither the GDP nor the CPI or the WPI has followed a same kind of trend. Now look at this. Net FDI. If you look at net FDI, and you can check the trend of that as well. Now Forex, current account deficit and Forex, if you see that our Forex or current account deficit, it has also come down, and the Forex, how much is the accretion, percentage accretion in the Forex reserve, that is what has been shown. Now this do not get confused that are the Forex reserves reducing. This is the percent accretion in the Forex reserves. Now which can happen obviously when there is surplus on the BOP. Trade deficit similarly, debt, all this kind of trends have been shown. Now you keep a track of these trends anyhow. As you will take the material, you will have these charts in that material, and you can go through them to check these trends better. Now when you say foreign exchange reserves, when the Forex reserves we are talking, obviously they are increasing, but the rate of accretion might not be always. Now this is a gross bank credit, that's also you can see. Employment also self-employed, regular wage, salaried and casual labor. On two you can see 5-year gap data has been shown. National infrastructure pipeline. Now this is where you can see that this is how the expenditure would be made, and you must highlight that where the expenditure is highest maybe. India is now the 5th largest economy. That also we have seen in our economic survey classes. Now you can see that India is 5th largest, standing at 2.9 trillion US dollars, and obviously still USA is the largest economy, and this is at per current GDP at current prices, but GDP at PPP basis, India is 3rd largest. Keep that in mind as well. Now look at this. Let's have a look at the budget. Let's have a glance at the budget, and if we see that, we will understand that revenue expenditure, capital expenditure, both has increased. We have seen that in the survey as well. Revenue receipts, capital receipts, both have receipts. But again, the trends, I'm leaving it on you to check the trends as you get the material, and you keep a track of that as well. And it would be very good that if you can write a small line here and there, just to remind you quickly what about the trend situation is. Now, which are the sources of revenue? Remember, budget is nothing but it is a statement on revenue and expenditure. So which are the sources from where the revenue comes from? The revenue, if you see, or the rupee, if suppose this is 100% of the revenues, or many times you have seen that a 1 rupee coin would be shown and it would be divided into different parts, because 1 is everything. So consider that if this is 1 rupee is what the government earns, then 18% of that 1 rupee comes from corporation tax, 7% from excise duty, income tax 17%, non-debt capital receipts 6%, borrowings and other liabilities 20%, non-tax revenue 10%, customs 4%, GST 18%. Now obviously there are some decimal differences here, therefore corporation tax gives higher revenue, tax revenues than GST. And where the money goes to, if you look at this, 20% of what the government, central government earns goes to states, a share of taxes and duties. This must be seen over and above the Finance Commission award, the 42% devolution that has been made to the state. Centrally sponsored schemes 9%, subsidies 6%, defense 8%, interest payments 18%, Finance Commission and other transfers 10%, central sector schemes 13%, other expenditure 10%, pensions 6%. So again, here also there can be a trend kind of questions, or there can be arrange the following in terms of their expenditure, or arrange the following in terms of their revenue in the overall revenue, or as percentage of GDP. Anything can be asked. Now look at this, the tax proposals that have been laid down. These are the existing tax rates and these are the new tax rates. If you see that up to 5 lakh there is no change, it means 0 to 2.5 it was exempted, still it is exempted, 2.5 to 5% is still 5%, but after that there has been a change, there has been a reduction in the tax rates, although the tax structure is still progressive in nature. The point here to be noted is that the economy is slowing down, and to promote consumption this has been done. Now maybe next year's budget, if the economy picks up, you can see that these tax rates may go up slightly. Proposal to remove the DDT, which is the dividend distribution tax, and adopt a classical system of dividend taxation under which the companies would not be required to pay DDT. The dividend shall be taxed only in the hands of the recipients at their applicable rate. Simply means that when the companies, they distribute dividends, they pay a tax, and also those who receive the dividend is a form of income, they pay a income tax on that. Now what the budget has done is it has exempted the companies from paying the taxes. Obviously that's a good move, because then the government, the companies would be encouraged to give the dividends more to the people, and the people will end up with more money, and again it will improve the purchasing capacity. No dispute but trust scheme, Vivad se Vishwas scheme. Now this is what has been promoted. Now look at this, a taxpayer would be required to pay only the amount of the disputed taxes and will get complete waiver of interest and penalty provided he pays of before 31st March 2020. Those who avail this scheme after 31st March 2020 will have to pay some additional amount. The scheme will remain open till 30th June 2020. Now, is what you're saying, that there are a lot of controversies, and if you see the ITAT, which is the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, you'll see that is filled with applications, people seeking rebates, remissions, etc. So there is a lot of territory which comes under disputed tax. So you see what the government has proposed. Government has said that if there is a dispute with respect to tax, you pay the taxes. whatever is the disputed amount, but do it before 31st of March 2020. It means this month, before this month ends 2020. And if you say fail to do that, then again a kind of extension is given to you up to June 2020, 30th June 2020, but in that case you have to pay an extra penalty. And if you do that before 31st of March 2020, then you would be exempted from penalties, interest, etc., but only the disputed. Like, because the interests are growing so much, people get disincentivized to pay that tax, because it is not like they are evading the taxes, but there is some sort of confusion with respect to tax laws, and that is why we need the direct tax code. Anyhow, look at this instant PAN through Aadhaar. Government will also launch a system under which PAN shall be instantly allotted online on the basis of Aadhaar without any requirement for filling up detailed application forms. Also, this will reduce the duplication of PAN. Now, you go to the income tax office and you apply for your PAN card, and it takes a lot of time. Now, what will happen is, as you have your Aadhaar, you will get your PAN automatically in a seamless manner, and that is what has been promoted by this budget. Now, these are more or less the same things which we have already discussed. Now, expenditure, if you see that what you need to keep in mind is in crores is what is the expenditure. The largest expenditure is for the Ministry of Defence, where you can see 4,71,378. So you can see the different categories under which you have expenditure. So keep this also in mind, and this can come like, say for example, an ascending order, descending order, or any way the UPSC wishes to ask. Financial markets, let us have a look at them. Certain specified categories of government securities would be opened fully for non-resident investors, apart from being available to domestic investors as well. Obviously, government securities means the T-bills and the dated securities. The limit for FPI in corporate bonds, currently at 9% of outstanding stock, will be increased to 15% of the outstanding stock of corporate bonds. To improve investors' confidence and to expand the scope of credit default swaps. Remember, credit default swap is kind of insurance mechanism. We propose to formulate a legislation to be placed soon before the House for laying down a mechanism for netting of financial contracts. Obviously, it's a kind of legislation which will promote investor interest. Now, to address the liquidity constraints of NBFCs, HFCs, the government formulated a partial credit guarantee scheme for the NBFCs. To further this support of providing liquidity mechanism would be devised. Government will offer support by guaranteeing securities so floated. Now again, these are saying what the government will do. As far as what the government will do, it is not necessary for your examination, because that has not been done as far as pre is concerned. But maybe it will be asked like what the government needs to do for the mains, but that's a subjective kind of examination. Here you keep a focus on the NBFC and HFC, the rollover risk, remember, that we have discussed in the economic survey. So keep those kind of things in mind. Now, let us have a look at the financial sector, the Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation. Now, DICGC is fully owned by the RBI. It gives you a kind of insurance coverage with respect to your saving bank account, your fixed deposit, and all your demand and time liabilities, recurring deposits. You can include all kinds of deposits. Has been permitted to increase deposit insurance coverage for a depositor, which is now 1 lakh to 5 lakh. Now, to strengthen the cooperative banks, amendments to Banking Regulation Act are proposed for increasing professionalism, enabling access to capital, and improving governance and oversight for sound banking through the RBI. The limit of NBFCs to be eligible for debt recovery, remember the NBFCs, they have this asset liability management mismatch, especially the HFCs, which takes short-term liabilities but give long-term assets, and therefore SARFAESI is a kind of, you can understand, a realization of the debt which has defaulted, like something like that. Is proposed to be launched from 500 crore to the asset size of 100 crore. Asset size means the total paid up equity capital along with the physical assets that the company is holding. Or from the loan size is borrowings from 1 crore to 50 lakh. Means now the companies can go for liquidation, and they can also go for, they can impose SARFAESI regulations if they have the asset size is 100 crore or 50 lakh. Obviously, to improve their situation, the NBFC sector, remember, they are passing through a crisis. To help easy mobility while in jobs, universal pension coverage while auto enrollment has been proposed along with such mechanisms which can enable interoperability and provide safeguards for the accumulated corpus. Simply means is that like when you change jobs, because the provident fund transfer takes time, it's a kind of disincentive to change job, because people feel that again they may not be able to get things transferred on time, or maybe there will be some hassles, or it will cause inordinate delay, and may also involve some deductions of their long-term deposits. And that's why you see that this is what has been launched. Regulation role for PFRDI, which is Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority of India, requires strengthening. Necessary amendments would be carried out in the Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority of India Act, which will also facilitate separation of NPS, which is National Pension Scheme Trust for government employees, from PFRDI, so that now you can have separate trust for the private sector as well. So this is, you see, this would also enable establishment of pension trust by the employees other than Indian government. National pension scheme, remember, both government employees as well as private employees can invest in it, and it's a very safe channel to invest your scarce money. Now look at this, what has been done with respect to the MSME sector. The Finance Minister has proposed to make necessary amendments to the Factor Regulation Act 2011. This will enable NBFCs to extend invoice financing to MSMEs through trade receivables electronic discount system. Obviously, a digitization, remember, one of the aim of the budget, and MSME, they are the backbone of the economy. They generate a lot of employment, and also they help in supply of small specialized goods. So this is what has been proposed under this. Working capital. Working capital means the capital which is required by a company to run its day-to-day expenses. It means its current liabilities and current expenditure, you can say. It is proposed to introduce a scheme to provide subordinate debt for entrepreneurs of MSME. This subordinate debt to be provided by banks would count as quasi-equity and would be fully guaranteed through the Credit Guaranteed Trust for medium and small entrepreneurs. The corpus of CGT MSC would accordingly be augmented by the government. In very simple words, if we can say this, that quasi-equity means if you subscribe to this debt, it would be treated as quasi-equity, means though it is not equity, but it is like equity. It means obviously it gets the coverage or the cover from the CGT MSC. Anyhow, look at this. More than 5 lakh MSMEs has benefited from restructuring of debt permitted by RBI in the last year. Anyhow, so this window, the government has asked to extend this window further up to 31st March 2021. An app-based invoice financing loans product will be launched. This will obviate the problem of delayed payments and consequential cash flows mismatches for the MSMEs. Now, the point is, this will be launched, that will be done. You do not bother yourself so much with that, but keep these things in mind so that it will help you in your mains examination as well. But as far as pre-examination is concerned, go more for these kind of things which have already been done rather than those things which are proposed or will be done. Now, let us have some, let us appreciate something with respect to the governance that has been done. It is proposed to set up a national recruitment agency as an independent professional specialist organization for conduct of computer-based online common eligibility test for recruitment to non-gazetted posts. It means you can say class 1 officers, class 2 officers, if you leave them, then for non-gazetted posts, this is what has been proposed. It's a computer-based online common eligibility test. There is a growing need for the Indian statistical system to meet challenges of real-time monitoring of our increasing complex economy. Data must have strong credibility. The proposed new national policy on official statistics would use latest technology, including AI. So artificial intelligence would be used, and you see national policy on official statistic is proposed. The aim is again to handle big data. So as far as this budget is concerned, 3 important themes: aspirational India, economic development, and caring society or caring India. And you see that there is focus on digitization, infrastructure improvement, pension and insurance penetration, and also disaster resilience. That is what I had to share with you people, and that would be enough as far as the budget is concerned. And keep this in mind that though we are interacting only through the online mode, but if you have any doubts, you are always welcome, and you check my availability and you can come and ask me your doubts. And that's it for this class. Thank you very much.